Welcome everyone to another episode of Illuminated, where we seek to connect, love, and illuminate today's youth. I'm your host, Noah Marshall, and you may notice that my co-host, Colby, is not here today. He's out of town, but I have a special guest today and a great friend of mine. Please welcome Trevi Bryant to the show. Hi, welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course,
it's an honor.
Of course,
It is
yeah.
an honor.
So just to get started, why don't you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself and what you're doing this month?
Oh, sure.
Story behind that.
Yeah, so very exciting things right around the corner. Basically, I am 19. We'll start there. I am in college. I was doing ACC for a little bit, getting the basic credits and all of that. And in almost exactly a week, I'm going to be moving to France to go be an au pair. And if you don't know what an au pair is, basically it's kind of like a nanny. So I'm going to be helping out at the house of some family friends that we have that live out there in Paris. And I'm also going to be an intern at a church. So it's all very exciting. I've never moved out of my house before, so it'll be big.
Big moves,
yeah.
Big moves.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah. I know Noah and go to Gateway, and yeah, we're longtime friends. So it's really cool being here. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us, kind of elaborate more on the story of moving to France? That was like kind of like a calling from God, right?
Yeah. So basically, picture this. It's right before senior year of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what was on the horizon for me, if you will. And I just kind of had this feeling this one night. I was with my friend Anaya, and we were on these swings, and I was just sitting there and I was just telling her about how I'd felt like God wanted me to move abroad. And there was something exciting, of course, with that concept, but there wasn't anything tangible for that to actually happen. It just felt like this crazy idea. And I didn't know where. I thought like maybe Switzerland would be cool. Like that was just kind of like what I would imagine. But ironically enough, my dad has some family friends that live in Paris, and they are needing a au pair to come and help them take care of the things at the house. And then they have a church that meets in a boat in like France. So I'd be helping out there. It's called My Gospel Church. And so yeah, it just kind of all was falling into place in this way that, you know, couldn't have been done by human hands. Like it just really was working out. So yeah, very exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you mentioned your dad having friends, and for those of you who don't know, he is the pastor here at Gateway Church,
True. It is true.
Which is the church that we attend. So why don't you tell the audience kind of more of what it was like growing up in the church and having your dad as the pastor here?
Yeah, so basically, like growing up, I always remember having my dad be this like figure in the church, and it was always a cool thing whenever I was really young. You know, you see your dad on stage, and it's all like, oh, and you know all these like cool worship leaders. So it was always really cool whenever I was younger. Whenever I was older, that's whenever I started to kind of feel a little weird about it, because I knew that there was this sort of attention on me. And you know, whenever you're early high school, you're a little bit more angsty, or at least I was. So I kind of like resented it a little bit for those reasons, and I was kind of going on my own path in that sort of way. So it felt weird for a little bit, or yeah, I don't know. It was this weird thing attention-wise. But nowadays, I've seen it be like something I'm really grateful for, because of how he's been such a good father to me, and how it has opened up like doors of opportunity within the church for me. So it's been really nice, but definitely something that I wouldn't have always given that answer to. But it's been cool. And I mean, I've like gone to, our church is called Gateway, so I've been going to Gateway now for almost 11 years, at least 10. And so I was like 8 when it began, and then now I'm 19. But in the beginning, I was definitely more like reserved, or like me and Noah will joke about this, like in the youth group room, I used to, like in this literal room that we're filming this in, I used to like sit in the back by myself and like kind of just not really want people to talk to me. Like
Not say a word.
It was like that for years, and like they would hang out after, but I didn't want to be involved. Like I wanted to go home. So I was like, I had that angst, you know, but it was really cool because around quarantine and all of that, I started to really seek after God and what my own personal relationship with him would be like, which I feel is a different way of coming to Jesus because of like being brought up in that way. I wanted to know who Jesus was to me rather than just what I had been taught as a kid. And I feel like that's something that has been cool to like rediscover like for the first time in a way.
Yeah. Was there any pivotal moments that led you to discovering and diving deeper into your faith?
Yeah, I mean, I went through my first breakup back in like 2019, and through like that like desperation that you find in heartbreak, I was definitely needing like something to fill that like void that I felt.
Yeah.
And it basically led me to start watching sermons every now and then on YouTube, or like I watched like Joyce Meyer's, and I watched like some Transformation Church. That was also like a beginning of my pursuit. And I even was in like that group with me, you, Ricky, and Colby, where we read the book of Acts every Wednesday, I think it was. And so that was all like kind of bridging me into that new part of my life that ended up being completely like night and day whenever quarantine happened. Because then I had, you know, so much time on my hands, and then I started feeling like pretty existential, especially with like the fear of everything going on. And I wanted to know, like, okay, I want to actually, like, if God is real, then why would I not want to know him and like know what kind of a life he created me to live? So I was just having those kind of thoughts, and during that time that we had, I just would watch church, and like it wouldn't be the one that my dad works at. And now it's like my favorite church, but I wanted to see like what are other churches like, or what are other people's opinions on this and all of that. And so it just gave me like the opportunity to really explore things in a new way that was really beneficial, and not have the distractions, if you will, of like social life or any other everyday, you know, distraction like that. So it was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So after diving deeper into this, how has your life changed since you started diving deeper into your faith and following God, and just maybe give some examples of just some cool moments? And
Sure. Yeah. Well, growing up, I actually had, like, I remember my first panic attack was whenever I was 8 years old. And that was a huge part of my life for at least, like, you know, another 8 years after that. Until I was like 16, I would have panic attacks, definitely weekly, sometimes daily. Wow. And so it was like a really big, just like, it almost was like my personality. And I didn't have very many friends because of it, because I didn't want to like go out. I didn't want to, like anything was like a trigger. And it was like this unexplainable, I didn't know why. And I didn't know how to make it stop. I would, you know, like dream of just being normal. And that was just like my life for such a, you know, big portion of like development, you know, 8 to 16. And so whenever I started to really pursue God, like that has like completely been washed away. And of course, like I'll still have moments of like anxiousness, and like that's just, you know, part of something that I struggle with, but it's not to the same degree, because I now know like I don't have to be in control. I don't have to protect myself. I don't have to know the answers. I can just like submit that to God and surrender. And because I know him, I know that he really is good. Like people say he's good, but like he really is good, and I know that like to a personal level. So it's easier for me to not get so caught up in the things that would stress me out or make me worry, even to the point of panic attacks, because I let him worry about it for me, if you will. And that is probably the most, one of the bigger things that it has changed. But even just the way that I perceive life, I feel has shifted, you know, like night and day. Because before it was just about like this pursuit of happiness, where now I feel my purpose is so much bigger than that, because happiness is fleeting. Those moments of, you know, pleasure in any type of way, they only last so long. And so I've just been, you know, trying to see what God has for me rather than what I necessarily would want. And by doing that, I've seen that what I want, I don't even know, and that he knows me better than I know myself. And so I can trust him and what that looks like for me. And like, even with the moving to France thing, like it all sounds really cool. And like, you know, I'm sure as many people's dreams to like move abroad and all that. And I feel so excited and like very fortunate. It's like a huge huge blessing. But there also is like a part of me where it's like, I have to give all of the life that I have here up because I feel God is wanting me to take this next step, and it's worth it to me, and I'm excited to see what that is because I trust him. But it's also like, wow, like this is a big deal. Like I'm leaving literally everyone. I don't know anyone in France. I don't know anyone out there. I barely even know the language. Like it's gonna be huge, but every single time I have the opportunity to make a sacrifice for God, and I do, I've never wished I didn't. And so I'm just remembering that in this new season of life, and really excited to do that for the rest of my life, whatever it looks like. You know, it's not always, you know, something as moving, but even just in letting go of certain bad habits or tendencies or any other thing, like it can be hard, definitely harder than, you know, an exciting move, but nonetheless, the denominator is the same, that it's always been worth it.
Yeah, I can tell that just from kind of like what you mentioned, and since when I first knew you, like always just very, you know, reserved in the back and not hanging out, but now like you're super involved, especially being a leader of worship too, for the student youth service and for the main Sunday service, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to see.
I appreciate it, yeah.
You mentioned, you know, when you're going to go to France, just kind of leaving this community behind, which is going to be hard, but kind of just staying on the topic of community, what was it like, or how was community influenced your faith, and how was kind of the community here at church and at Gateway and with the youth? Was there any challenges with those between like your other friend groups at school or anything like that?
Yeah, I love that question because it definitely is very prevalent in my life. My friends from high school specifically were the ones that I kind of developed this life with. And ever since I've been pursuing God more and more, I've seen a distance in similarities with some of the people that I really grew up with. And with that comes a lot of loneliness and a lot of confusion and a lot of, loneliness is probably like the main word, because I just feel like there is like a big difference in a lot of ways. And so being able to be surrounded by people that are, you know, essentially following the same thing at an existential level is like really beautiful, because I've been able to grow a lot in how I relate to God, but also how I can give to other people. And I feel like the love from people that I'm friends with from church or anyone else that's like feeding into my life spiritually, it's helping me have an overflow to, you know, give to my other friends in a way that I couldn't have on my own. Yeah. And it's definitely been like a huge blessing and something that I will never forget. And like, you guys are like lifelong friends. Like, even with moving, like I'm not worried about like, dang, I'm gonna never see them again. Like, you guys are like gonna be there. Yeah, and I just, it's huge. It makes a huge difference having that community. People always talk about it and you hear it and you're like, true, sure. But like when you live it out, it's like, dang, I would not trade this. Yeah, it's really cool.
Me and Colby were talking, hopefully we're gonna take a Europe trip and we'll see you.
This is news to me, you heard it
but
first.
I'm not gonna tell you when we go. It's gonna be a complete surprise.
I love surprises, that would be really cool.
Yeah, you've had
I will
like
definitely,
4 birthday surprises.
I will definitely
back
cry. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I love surprises. That'll be the best day of my life.
So how has, what have been some challenges, struggles that you've had to overcome since following God? Like, has there been any things that you've had to overcome and just, yeah, for
sure. I mean, definitely the loneliness aspect. I had a friend one time tell me that she wished that we were still the confused 16-year-old girls that we used to be, and how that now kind of contrasts to the understanding that I've received from God. There's like, it does separate you, and the loneliness I was talking about is definitely real. Even with the people that were, you know, essentially felt like my siblings, they were so close to me. So there's definitely that aspect, but yeah, it's definitely more rewarding than it is challenging. But there are definitely times apart from the loneliness where it's just like I feel called to do something that I might not naturally want to do. I'm, you know, trust me, I'm definitely more of a selfish person than I'd like to admit, and so whenever I'm following God, when he tells me to do things from a generous heart, it's definitely not my inclination. And like serving people on a practical and emotional level, it's not, you know, what I would naturally want to do, just giving and giving. But because of that overflow I was talking about, like coming from God, it makes it, like he helps take the load for sure. So it's not too heavy for me. He never allows things that we can't handle. But yeah, I feel like I would say socially, it's definitely probably the hardest part, because there's a lot of connotations about Christianity specifically that are pretty valid. Like whenever you think of things historically, or the way that a lot of Christians have tried to represent Jesus, it's like the hurt that has been done, it's not even like something that you can really defend. So it's kind of having to push with the truth that I've found on a deeper level than just religion, that is what's pushing me to still, you know, feel it's worth being known as that. Whenever to so many people that could be, like the name of Christianity could be a sign of hurt, I'm trying to really pursue what Jesus taught biblically and, you know, relationally with, you know, me and him. So yeah, it's definitely like not this cool, like in some ways it's almost social suicide, at least from where I'm coming from friend group wise, to like be a Christian, that's like not a cool thing. So it's definitely weird in that regard. But I've definitely seen God be able to use me in these ways that I wouldn't care, you know, what people would think, even if it initially might be like, what? Like, what is this? You know, I think it's really rewarding to be a part of like rebranding almost in that way, to be more authentically aligned rather than, you know, trying to do anything else. But yeah, hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, it made sense.
Okay.
Perfectly. Yeah, no worries. So when you move to France in this next week, you'll be obviously leaving me, which will still stay connected. But how do you think, since you're leaving this church community that you've been part of for so many years, how do you think you'll stay connected, or what are some ways you'll stay connected to God and your faith while being over there in a place you've never been?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of it will be to be determined. I don't know, you know, what that'll look like, but I definitely plan on, I mean, honestly, I feel like I'm gonna really need God whenever I'm out there, like having no friends and having none of my family over there and like no one I know. Like I definitely know that it's probably gonna be a season where like, it's not just that I want God, but I feel like I'm gonna need him. And I need him all the time, but I feel like it'll be especially obvious. And so I definitely hope to continue to, you know, pray. And people talk about praying as well, and you know, what is that? It's really just like this communication with God, and that can be really just like a relief even. Like even if I don't feel I know fully an answer to a problem, just being able to address the like struggles or the things that are worrying me, like just brings such a relief, I guess. And so definitely like praying and like talking to him like the friend that he is, I think will definitely be a help. And I definitely have found it to be very effective to actually read the Bible. And I am always on the Bible app. If anyone like is following me on there, they get so many emails because I'm like always like highlighting stuff and saving pictures and all of that. So I also really like the plans that they have on there. So I'll probably be doing that. And yeah, I think it's also cool to keep in touch with people from back home, FaceTiming them and being open and, you know, willing to be vulnerable about whatever I probably will be going through. But yeah, I definitely am excited. I feel like one of the main things that makes me look forward to my trip is almost like, it sounds weird, but almost that desperation that I'm expecting for me to really like focus, like to just like really focus on God. And you can do that anywhere. You don't have to like, you know, go move in the wilderness or anything in order for that to happen. But it's definitely something that I feel will probably help, or kind of like how quarantine was for me, like where it was this isolation of my past not being with me in that present. I feel like having that change could probably, you know, be a sort of parallel in that way that really helped me initially with my relationship with God.
So you'll probably be, not isolated, but it'll just pretty much be you and God over there for the most part. Do you think that kind of getting rid of like everyday distractions helps just kind of you grow closer? Because I know sometimes you'll just kind of go off social media kind of at times. Do you think that kind of moving away from these everyday, I don't know the word, but just everyday things, do you think getting rid of those distractions helps you dive deeper and grow closer?
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's I feel like moving or being in quarantine are like probably the most extreme levels of that. So it's not always practical. Not everyone can, leave their situation. And so I feel like those are extreme examples, but even just like what you mentioned, like me deleting like different apps that I feel are kind of, I feel like you can feel whenever something's not good for you. I'll have like little breaks, if you see me posting on Instagram or anything, like, that might be like a quick little season of like, me doing it for a little bit. But I definitely have had times where I can feel this getting in between me and what I want to prioritize. And so for me personally, that'll be like, I spend a lot of time on YouTube. Sometimes I'll take my YouTube breaks. And then Instagram, that's another thing. But I feel like whatever you feel like is getting in between you and what you're wanting to seek after, whether that be a deeper relationship with God or just like more healthy habits, I feel like that is always, a cool thing to be able to do. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. Little breaks from your phone too. Love doing those. It's hard in the beginning, but always worth it. It's really cool. Yeah.
You say, you mentioned you like reading the Bible app, which is I think just called YouVersion.
Yep. Big fan.
I actually just started. I guess I didn't have an account, but I just set it up yesterday. And started some of those plans, which are really good.
Yeah.
So you can just plug them, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I do. I liked it. But you can just find plans like they have kind of categories. So if you, I don't know, kind of like seeking more of, or like one of your things right now is like anxiety. They'll have devotionals and stuff like that for whatever you're feeling and kind of help you through that, which is cool.
Yeah, it's like these daily plans. Some of them, like I'm in one that's like a year long. I'm like halfway right now, and then there's others that are like 3 days long. So it's like really customizable, I guess. But yeah, I also really like, this is kind of a recommendation to you and the viewers, but they have like these daily stories as well on the homepage where like they have like a little video and then the verse of the day and all that. And like a prayer, love those. I recommend those as well. So if you're wanting to like get started, not sponsored, but if you're wanting to get started like reading the Bible, that really helped me. That and like YouTube sermons, like looking up different things that you might be struggling with, but very cool, practical ways.
So what part are you reading right now? Is there
That's
a
a fun
certain
question.
book? Yeah.
Well, I'm not reading a certain book of the Bible right now, but I am doing a Bible plan about the Holy Spirit. And it's cool to learn more about what that means, because there's all sorts of, I don't know if buzzwords are is the right term, but there's so many repetitive, words or things, especially in the church. And like for so long, I feel like I didn't actually know what the Holy Spirit was. And so right now I'm learning more about, him in that sort of way. And it's been very cool. I also had this cool plan about anxiety, and that can help as well. And yeah, it's really cool. All the different options that you have. I've done so many. It's really cool.
How would you explain or like kind of define what the Holy Spirit is?
What
have you learned?
Yeah, that's a very big question for sure. But I think a lot of people, it's hard for our human brains to fathom, the complexities of God, especially whenever it's like this Trinity. Like, what does that mean? Like, it's one, but it's three. It's like hard for our human brains to kind of fathom. And something that I've heard my dad say is like, if you can completely box in God and like understand and fully know, then, God, like how could God be bigger than you if you could pin him down? And so I feel like part of the beauty about it is the mystery. But to kind of answer your question, the Holy Spirit, in the Bible, Jesus sent the Holy Spirit as this helper to be with us always. And so though I've never looked at Jesus in the eyes or heard his voice audibly, I know what his presence feels like. And I don't know, I've heard people describe the presence of the Holy Spirit as like tingles or like goosebumps, or just like this moment of where you're just like weeping and like you don't fully know why, but it's like this like relief. And so and even like the whispers of like goodness in your head, like the kind of thoughts that I have to myself aren't like always super nice. And so I'll sometimes hear one that is more generous or selfless or kind to myself or gracious, and I can detect like that, I know that didn't come from me. And it's like you could see the fruit of it, or the origins of it be from a place that, you know, is much better and sweeter than my human origins, I guess, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I've just been learning more about his presence being constant, and that I don't need to like beg for him to be with me. He always is. And the cool thing is he really is a gentleman. And so if you're not wanting him in your life, then you could completely, you know, have that. Like, God is not going to force himself upon you. And so just pursuing God and asking for more, and asking even for more of a desire to want him is kind of what I've been doing recently, because sometimes I'm not in the mood to do certain things, but with knowing what is best through what he has shown me, I pray that his will would be done in my life, and that he would give me a hunger for him more, because I know that that is what's best, even if I don't feel like it. And I feel like the Holy Spirit is really the one that can really help with that. So, yeah.
I think we all kind of hear him in different ways. You mentioned, you know, just that feeling of weeping or goosebumps or whatever it is, and the kind of just whispers that you get. For whispers, how do you think, or how do you kind of separate kind of like his voice and those thoughts and whispers from like just your own?
Sure, that was a question I had for very many years, and even still, like I feel like there's a way to kind of discern it, and it's not always just because you know. There's certain times where I feel like I'll just know, or I feel like he has spoken to me more recently through dreams, and I'll pray about it, because you could like definitely come up with your own conspiracies as to what certain thoughts could be coming from, or what dreams or anything, any signs, what they could mean. But I try to pray about it and see and really feel like what deep in my heart I feel he's saying. And if it aligns with, you know, the Bible and the truths that we know to be, that's usually a cool way of discerning it. Or I also have heard my dad say things like, if the thought is, you know, of some way generous or selfless, that's probably not coming from you. If it's, you know, good and something that would really help other people and benefit them, like things like that, things that are of God's perfect nature. But yeah, definitely praying about it if you're not sure, and kind of waiting. And you know, sometimes you can't fully tell, so you could, you know, my mom always will say God will open certain doors and close others, and so you could like try and walk through whatever door you believe and be like, God, I feel like this is what you're saying. If it is not, then please show me, and please stop whatever. But if it is, I'm going to take this moment in faith to, you know, believe that that was you. And I feel like that's kind of, but it's definitely like, there's not like a immediate, like you always will know without fail. There's always a little bit of mystery. But those are the ways that I've kind of helped kind of discern if it's me or if it's Jesus. Yeah.
That's good. So we hit many topics during this episode today, but what is something you want us to take away from your story and your faith journey?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would hope for people to remember that God is someone that can really work through any sort of circumstance. Often there's times where we might not understand things, or we might not fully see the full picture. And I've just learned that through big changes or small, God can really work through them in ways that can impact us further than what we could expect. There was this one time I was really upset. We were having to move houses, and it was my childhood house, and I loved that place. And I was just really bummed out about it. And I was sitting in the backyard of that house, and I was just praying to God, like, I hate this. Like, could you just show me a red cardinal? I just want to see a red cardinal. It would be comforting. I don't know why that, but I want to see that. Can you please give me that kind of sign, if you will? And I'm sitting out in the backyard. I'm just waiting, I'm looking around. After a while, it's like getting a little awkward. I'm like getting a little bit more discouraged. I'm like, where is this thing? Am I just not looking in the right place? And I sat out there for a couple of minutes, and I never saw it. I just never saw it. And I like left being like, okay, I still trust you. I don't I don't get why you didn't show me you could do it, but whatever, I trust you. And so basically, we ended up moving, it happened, and at my family's new house, it's not even a day that goes by that I don't see a red cardinal. And so it really, that story and that memory of mine of that moment was like, God really has like a bigger plan. And even whenever I don't get it, even whenever I'm scared to do it, even if I'm doubting, you know, the presence that he has in it, I can remember that story and many others like it from my life and others, that he is good and that he does have something around the corner. Yeah. There's lots of pleasant surprises to come just around the corner, and that it is worth the wait, and it is worth those hard questions that you might have, and he will answer them.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It's important that we trust God, because you're totally right. He always has a bigger plan, and it might not be the plan that we want or that we're expecting, but it's important that we trust him for that. So thank you for sharing.
Exactly, yeah.
But thank you for being on the show.
Oh,
it was great having you.
So much fun,
yeah.
yes.
Have fun on your French trip. We'll be praying for you, and I'll be in communication. FaceTime, on the phone calls.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
I'll have a beret, maybe a French mustache.
Ooh.
Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun. This whole set, it's super legit, guys. If you're ever on this show, you'll see. It's legit up in here. But yeah, also shout out to Frank. He's behind the camera. It's a lot of hard work.
Yes.
And Noah with all these good questions. And Colby, you guys are the best. It's been awesome.
Yes, loved having you. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us for this week's episode. We hope you enjoyed Trevi's story and all that she had to share with you guys. So yeah, thank you for joining us for this episode, and be sure to tune in next Friday for the next episode.
Bye, guys.